Hello everyone. I'm really excited to be here at the Safari Museum, and I'm here with the curator Jackie Borgeson, and we are here because we are featuring Osa Johnson. She is our Woman of the Week, and she is quite a spectacular woman. And so we're just going to kind of go through here, and Jackie is just going to be kind of telling us about Osa as we go through here. So Jackie, can you tell us about these I was going to call them zebras. These giraffes right here.
They're actually from the island of Bali. They're carved wood and they can be folded down almost into nothing. And they were in an estate sale in Lawrence, Kansas, and a museum member saw them, Kenneth Reinhardt, and he said, the museum really needs to go buy these. And I said, unfortunately, we have no money. We never buy anything, but feel free to buy them for us. I was joking. He bought them and they came in the car the next day.
That is just awesome.
They're wonderful. We held a contest and they were named by a child. The tall one here is Zeke for Kansas, and the smaller one is Zulu for Africa.
Very funny. You know, one thing that's kind of funny, I'm sure people who are driving through Chanute, Kansas, basically the center of America, out
conveniently located around the world.
Yes. When they drive through Chanute, they see all these safari-like animals on signs, and I'm sure, you know, if you don't know the history, you're like, what in the world? I think this is interesting. The #1 museum in Kansas. We'll show that off.
And the Topeka Capital Journal sent out a secret reporter, and he went to the top 100 tourism event draws in Kansas and rated us on different things. And we beat Hutchinson, which is the largest. We beat all the other museums in the in Kansas to be #1 museum in Kansas.
That is awesome. Now, Jackie, I also love the story about the history. Well, come on in here. The story about the History Channel. Channel.
A couple years ago, they announced the top 10 places in the entire United States to visit for Valentine's Day. We were #4, and we were the only one on the entire list that had to have a state recognition. It was like New York City, Los Angeles, New Orleans, Chanute, Kansas, Miami, all the other cities. You knew where they were, and they had to explain Chanute, Kansas, and we were voted that because of Osa Johnson's book, I Married Adventure.
Yeah.
And that if you were going to go anywhere in the United States and wanted a history of true romance, that book in this place is that.
Speaking of that book, do you by any chance have a copy of that book or the cover of that book where we can share?
Yep, go in straight in there and go up to that shelf. You see them up on the shelf?
Oh, yes. Okay. I'm just going to grab one down. This is an original, right?
Yes, this is a 1940 original with the zebra, and how you tell is the adventure is in italics.
Oh,
it's the only way. The only true first editions have adventure in italics. Later on, they go and they're not in italics anymore.
That's awesome. So for those of you who are book readers, there you go. Put that on your list. Okay, now this gift shop, Jackie, you got to tell kind of the story about this gift shop.
We held another contest. We love contests.
Yes.
For children. We did have it open to adults as well, and we asked them to name this store. And the name of the store is Osa's Ark.
That's awesome.
And it was for her, for the airplane, of course, the zebra airplane, which was actually Martin's. He named it for Osa, his wife, and because he had to carry all of his animals in her airplane, in his airplane.
That is awesome.
So this is the Osa's Ark Museum shop.
Okay, and we've got to show the Osa's Ark, a picture of that.
Yes, that's it right up there.
Okay.
It's the zebra one. The smaller giraffe plane is actually the one that Osa piloted and was her plane. Martin had the larger one just because it had more equipment access, and he named his for her because of course he loved his wife.
Yes.
And she named her Spirit of Africa after where they were going.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
You don't name cars and things after men. No. So, she wasn't just slighting Martin.
Well, and I think it's really cool because didn't Osa and Martin learn how to fly in Chanute?
They did. They actually, when they needed to have the test taken, they actually would fly in New York international testers and Wichita testers into the what's now the Martin Johnson Airport.
Cool.
And they wanted to get their license here in town. They felt it was really important to get it here in town.
That's awesome.
And they took with them a Kansas flight instructor. The one who taught them how to fly went to Africa with them. And you'll see something from him coming up.
Okay, so now the Snark. Can you tell them the story?
This is the trip that Martin took before he met Osa. He went on a trip around the world with Jack London.
With the camera.
You can see the little figures of Martin taking Jack London and his wife Charmian's photo. They're the only one. 4 of these ships were made by a couple. They made models. And this is the only one that has Martin Johnson on.
That's awesome.
As a figure. So that's why we have this one.
Some of these.
And when Martin returned from this trip to Kansas is when he met Osa. So this is before he met Osa Johnson.
Yeah.
Because he was obviously a little older than her, and he traveled around the world one time before he met her.
Trying to be steady so the viewers are not going, oh my goodness,
Traveling.
I'm getting, yes, exactly.
Well, this is all right. This is like them being in an
Going
African tour of a...
Exactly. Okay, now you got to tell the story about this.
The foot.
Yes, elephant foot.
This foot is the actual first artifact ever donated to the museum. Osa's mother gave that. It's artifact number 1-1. It is the only elephant they ever had to shoot in Africa. They did not have hunting licenses because they were not hunters. They shot it because it charged during a fire, a forest fire, and it was scared and it probably couldn't hear her warning shot. It charged. She dropped it so close that it actually broke the camera that they were filming. So they lost all the film, which Martin was livid about. And the camera stand itself, the tripod, bent up and tore into Osa's leg, and the picture is right afterward where she's picking at her leggings because that's how close it was. The tripod came right into her leg.
That is amazing.
It's the only one, and then years later on the wall there you can see that's her standing in it right before her death. The New York Times had her stand inside of it to show the size.
She was such a petite little lady.
She was, and that was in her New York apartment, and she was fundraising to open a museum, and she died shortly thereafter of a heart attack.
She was
tiny.
Very tiny.
The wedding dress is just amazing because it's so small. I had to break and bind a size 0 mannequin to make it fit. And she could wear that. She was wearing that 2 months before her death.
Oh my goodness.
So she could wear it from age 16 to age 59.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. Now, tell us about this. I love this picture of the two of them.
It's almost life-size. It's just a little hair smaller than life-size. This is them getting off the Lunatic Express, which is a very famous train in Africa. And we did it so that visitors could come and stand on the stairs there and have their picture. And if you print it in black and white,
it looks like
you're getting off the train with them. And we take it for our gala every year, and for Artist Alley usually, we'll take it outside next to a real train. And so it's even better when you print it in black and white. And so it just kind of sits here year-round. But we'll take it out on special events.
All right. There's the lions.
This is the lion that was shot by the man the Johnsons took with them from Chanute, their flight instructor. Osa and Martin had filmed this lion for 3 months in Lion Valley and had no trouble with him, but he was older and he got kicked out of his pride, so he didn't have females to hunt for him anymore. He followed them, tried to eat Martin. Martin was under it. It bit the camera lens, and Martin was using the camera to keep the lion off of him. Osa had laid her gun down because they weren't in lion territory anymore, and Vern Carstens ran over, picked up Osa's gun, and shot the lion on top of Martin.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that was on in front of their fireplace in Chanute, Kansas, until the museum opened, and that's what all those little burn marks are.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Okay, now absolutely love this picture.
I know.
How old is she here? This isn't her wedding.
This is her honeymoon because they didn't have a wedding.
Gotcha.
So we call it the honeymoon dress.
Okay, the honeymoon dress.
She's 16 years old there. Okay. And this is the dress she could still wear right before her death.
Wow.
And we have photos of her near her death time in the same dress. She was tiny, tiny, tiny. And then there she is. That is when she completed in Chanute, Kansas, her flight test. She passed her flying test, and that's the plane she won her license in.
Just amazing, amazing. All right, now I'm really excited about heading up these stairs because there is some really cool stuff of Osa's.
Well, the exhibit is actually designed like I Married Adventure, the book.
Okay.
It starts with their life, their growing up years, and it goes around to their married lives. So a lot of the Johnson fans love that book, and they remember the exhibit. So this is their favorite exhibit that we're coming up on. I mean, we've got the West African exhibit's great, but the one upstairs is really...
I love the funky shoes that she has.
The shoes are great.
Yeah, zebras.
We have one of her ball gown shoes. Just one. She gave another one away to a fan. She signed it, gave it away. I thought it was a doll shoe. It's so small.
Man.
When first time I saw it, I'm like, why do we have a doll? And they're like, that's Osa's shoe. Yeah, it's tiny, tiny.
Oh, this is so cool. I love this thing.
So it comes in here and it starts here with their lives and goes around in a circle. And there's the statue of them and one of their airplanes. That was her airplane. The giraffe one was the one she would have flown.
This lady, talk about living your dream. I mean,
And
this lady lived
did.
her dream.
Both of them did. Luckily, they had a shared dream that really worked out.
Yes.
This is life size.
Okay, I'm
This
going to
is
back up so people can get
according
it.
to their licenses and clothing we have, this was built to life size.
Wow.
He was about 6'2", she was between 4'11" and 5 feet.
Oh my goodness.
Very tiny.
Look at that. Because, okay, I'm holding this camera right up to my eyes.
Yeah, that's-
So if I were looking at,
No.
this is where I'd be, and I am 5'4".
Yeah, I'm
so
5'4"
that just shows you
People
how.
ask me all the time, was she
how
as short
petite.
as you? And I'm like, I'm 5'4". I'm a monster, and I'm an Amazon over Osa.
Yeah.
And then that zebra is the same zebra that the zebra shoes came from.
Okay,
If they
let's
had to kill an
go.
animal, they would use every part of it. So if you can look over there, you can see the shoes in the case.
I'm gonna
Coming up,
get
in zebra
the-
airplane.
Yeah.
And so they were very thrifty. You could tell they were good Kansan pioneer
Yeah.
children. They used everything. Here are the shoes. It's the same zebra as the head on the wall after
That
they had it
is
for
just,
dinner.
yes.
She sent the skin off
Amazing.
to Macy's.
Really?
The shoes were made, 2 purses and a belt were made from that, and she wore them with a black dress, a simple black dress, and that's what she would wear on her talks. She was an incredible fisher. You can see all of her fishing things and her pictures. Anywhere they were in the world, she'd be fishing.
Now, give a, a brief little background for any of our readers who are like, who in the world is Osa? I mean, she was kind of a pioneer. Her and her husband were kind of pioneers.
They were the first wildlife filmmakers ever. They invented that whole genre of filmmaking.
That is just incredible.
So anytime, think of all the channels that are devoted just to wildlife filming. Animal Planet, Discovery Channel.
Right.
That whole genre of film did not exist before Martin and Osa picked up a camera and said, we're just going to go in and film the animals. We're not going to capture them. We're not going to kill them unless we have to, to protect ourselves. Obviously, they did shoot animals, but, that wasn't why they were there.
Right.
And so they wanted to make a record. They're the first people really to have that idea of take a picture, leave your footsteps, take nothing else, that kind of mentality.
Right.
They were the first ones to really say, all we need are photos. That's why we don't necessarily have a ton of artifacts that they personally collected. What we have are gifts that were given to them that they later handed off to missionaries or friends that supported them. Because they didn't want a museum with things. They thought the photographs should be enough and that the object should be left with the peoples.
That's just awesome.
Yeah. They were very much ahead of their time on several of these things, the anthropology issues of don't interfere. Martin would just leave the camera run and let them speak their language.
Wow.
And today people are studying their languages and how it's changed in 80 years. And,
wow.
And they let the Samburers sit there and listen and they can't even understand it. It's like Old English for us. We wouldn't be able to understand it.
Wow. So now she was kind of a celebrity in Hollywood.
She really was, especially after Martin's death. She kind of had to become glamorous Osa. She had her own fashion line. She did work for Hollywood. She sold some of the films to Tarzan movies. She had her own television show. She was the first wildlife documentary on television. Most people remember Mutual of Omaha.
Yes, yes.
And they think that's the first one. It was 8 years after Osa's, and Marlon Perkins, who had that show, had been an employee of theirs.
Oh my goodness, I did not know that.
That's a zoologist who worked for them at the San Diego Zoo. And so, they were really cutting edge, and she really was cutting edge. First woman to fly over the Sea of China. Just tons of firsts that she, as a woman, did. First woman to own a studio in Hollywood. She had her own film studio.
Man, I love this picture right here.
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
In her book, 1940 bestseller, I Married Adventure, you showed earlier, that was required reading in Kansas schools.
Really?
In the 50s.
Oh, wow.
So, she was a woman author from Kansas.
Right.
And so that's what you would read as a child. So a lot of people remember that book, and that's why today it's still in 3 languages.
Wow.
It's in Spanish, English, and Polish.
Wow. That is just amazing.
It's been in 17 languages. It's been translated into 17 languages.
Wow.
And we have copies in our library.
Wow.
Of almost all of them.
Wow, that's just so cool.
She was just really famous on every continent. Even when I went to Chile, the museum, I got sent to Chile for a month. They never stepped foot in South America, and people knew them there.
Wow.
They had seen their films. They had read their books. They were the first to do this, and they were from Chanute, Kansas.
Chanute, Kansas.
She's buried on the same street she was born
on. Cool.
I mean,
cool.
That's just great.
It is. It's just an example of a woman living her dream, and that's exactly why we're featuring her.
And you don't have to go away. You don't have to abandon your home.
Right.
And they never abandoned. They couldn't do what they wanted at home necessarily, but they never forgot where they lived. They always talked about it. They always wrote about Kansas. When I go to these places and I meet the children who are now in their 80s, they were children in the photographs, they're like, I could describe Main Street to you.
Wow.
Because they would tell them about, they would ask me about the gas lanterns. Do we still have the gas lanterns that Osa said she missed?
Cool.
She said she missed the gas lanterns on Main Street.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Jackie, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
That was so good, and our hats off to Osa.
Yes.
So thank you, Osa, for following your dreams and being a woman who could inspire us. Thanks.